let's do it one at a time. Let's go and do.
Let's do that spreadsheet. All right, so here we go. This is what we pulled out of there. These were the leaders. Jabba the Hutt, which is green, black. Boba, green, hero. Cad, I like Cad, but Lloyd, I mean, Fennec Shan kind of sucks, I guess, right now.
Fennec's bad in draft. I think Fennec's bad.
I don't like Han either in draft.
I'm not a big Han fan either because it's all about board control and like dealing damage to your own units in draft. I don't know if you can take advantage of Han's ability enough to make it worth it in draft. So,
and believe it or not, Rey's not that bad.
Rey's really good. Rey's.
Yeah. I think. Do you think they purposely made her like good? Because I was looking at some of the cards, I'm like, this card sucks, but like people are gonna play it because they made it good.
I think in sealed and draft, she's good. I don't know if she's gonna be as good in just regular old constructed, but yeah. And those are not the right cards.
These aren't, but I didn't have them.
Yeah.
So I got 3 green bases. It doesn't matter. 3 green bases, a red, a gold, and a blue that are all 30 damage. So, all right. Han Solo is the first one. Fennec Shan. I showed these. Which ones did you make them on? Just let me know.
So I used Cad and Rey.
Okay, so here's Rey. Rey's action. Cost 1, you give an experience token to a unit that has 2 or less power, which makes it a 3/3 or 3 whatever. Especially with some of those ships, kind of dope.
Yeah.
When she's active, when you can activate her, which she activates off of what? Is it 6?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, 6. She activate her. She's only a 2, but she's a 2/6, but she restores 3 when the unit attacks, heals 3 damage from your base, and on attack, you may give an experience token to a unit that has 2 or less also. So
you can give it to herself. Like
you give it to herself.
Basically a 3/7. Yeah.
Yeah, which is I mean, if you're going against, like the Tarkin decks or stuff like that, like it makes it better real quick.
And 7 is hard to deal with in sealed. It takes a lot to destroy something with 7. It's not like you have a lot of removal. So that's why
Cad. This is probably the most dangerous card, and I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of Cad Banes being played just because of what Cad Bane can do. Cad Bane, when you play an Underworld card, so it doesn't have to be just a bounty hunter, but it has to have in the title Underworld, which is a lot of characters. Mm-hmm. When you play an Underworld card, you may exhaust this leader, which means you can turn him over. It doesn't cost anything. If you do, an opponent chooses a unit they control and it deals 1 damage to them. So you can just keep 1 damaging people till he comes in at 6. And then at 6, he gets raid 2 while attacking. And when you play any Underworld card, you may choose an opponent. Then they choose a unit they control and it has to deal 2 damage. You can use it once every single round. So you drop him, all of a sudden you drop Zuckuss. They have to give one. You get to choose one of the opponent's 2. That's it. 2 damage to your person. So like that's even before you attack. That's and it's every round. So like if Zuckuss is still there, the next round you're starting before you do anything. It's already -2 on somebody, dude. That's dangerous. It's broken right now in Calabas, so don't even try to play against it in Calabas. But these are some of the blues that they got. There's a lot of blue draws out of here. We'll see some of these cards come back up here, I assume, because you said you're doing Rey.
Yep.
A lot of blues there. I love Cargo Juggernaut. The defeat unit's a little high at 6, especially for her stuff, but we'll get there. Green look kind of soft, bro. Their air looks all right, but like the legendary sucks. We got 2 legendaries. They sucked.
Yeah. I'll tell you one card. Oh, we'll get into one tier these, but that Reputable Hunter, I think, is like busted.
Is it the card? Yeah.
Because I think you can play that. I think you can play that on turn 1 a lot of times. Because I think there are a lot of the units you're going to bounty on turn 1 because a lot of the cheap 1-cost drops have bounty.
Well, I'll tell you this too. Warzone Lieutenant at a 1/2/2 right off the bat isn't a bad card either.
Yeah, it's fine.
Especially if you get 2 of them in your hand. You can double drop. Price. There's a lot of green that got pulled out of here. The red looked good, but like once again, I just don't understand the leader in pre-release that you're going to put red with. Decent cards, but just nothing there as far as the draws were. Man, we drew a lot of red. I mean, that might be a thing that you should think about is how you're going to play red. If you're going to put it in a base or if you're going to do something. Because there's a lot of single red that seems to be drawn out of these packs.
Yep.
And then you got Zuckuss. But the other Tans we got here, I mean, all the other underworlds, you're going to have to go. You're going to have to. I mean, you can't do anything with them because they're rebels. So if you play, I mean, you're losing out on a lot. Luckily, Fennec Shan is underworld in just one color. She's the Tan. What color is that again, Colin? Gold or whatever? What is it?
Oh.
What's this?
Yeah,
What's
I
can't remember.
It's a smuggler.
Yeah, smuggler. Well, there you go. And then you got black. So, and actually, some of the cards that were actually pretty decent are the don't cost you anything.
I agree. There's some really good cards here.
Oh, okay.
Don't spoil what's coming up next. So yeah.
So then, do we have your decks that you built off of this, or?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So I built 2 decks. I built blue green with Ray. So I'll be interested to see which one you think is better. So as you can see here, I put the ground units together by cost.
Yeah.
So you're getting a clone deserter. That's a 2/3 with 1, but has that bounty point, but it also does restore. You get that that 1 drop you talked about. That's a 2/2.
Yeah, but that's Ray. If you're doing the restore, you're probably not going to need it till later, though. That's what kind of sucks. So it's already they're going to be able to take it out because of the bounty.
And with Ray, what I think I was doing, because Ray, you can give experience token with a unit with 2 or less power. I was trying to find lots of units that had 2 or less power, had lots of strong health, and had a little weaker attack, knowing that we could boost up their health and attack that way. So you see, a lot of these units are 2 cost.
So this is something that somebody always told me to, and I used it now. It's pretty good advice. Like, if you have the cards in your hand, what's your first and second play? And obviously, my first play, hopefully I get the Warzone Lieutenant. And this is if you're going to mulligan or not. If you have the Warzone Lieutenant, whatever your hand is, you're keeping, because you're going to take that card, play it 1, use the other card, turn Ray, and he's going to become a 3/3 real quickly. Or you could play, you could play the Clone Deserter because it's 3/4, but you lose out on the restore and it kind of stinks. So you kind of have to get Warzone Lieutenant.
I think either one was fine. Either one would be fine. I mean, it'd be a 3/4, but you still have the restore. But I think it's fine. No, but the one part about this deck, and this is something when you always you would like to have more 1 and 2 costs. There just weren't that many 1 and 2 cost units in this one. So when you see the ships, they help out a little bit, but not too much. But this Protector of the Throne, super strong with Ray, because it's 2/4. Ray can bump this up to a 3/5, and then it gets Sentinel, because when a unit is upgraded, and experience counts as upgrade. So basically, a 3/5 Sentinel is really tough to deal with. Again, these 2/6 Sentinels become 3/7 Sentinels with Ray. Those are hard to deal with. Ray really buffs up these Sentinels. Same thing with this 2/2.
That's going to be your first 3 cards. If this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you get 6 cards, leave the last one off. I would probably throw out the Clan Observer and maybe I don't know who else.
Right. These are all. They're all strong units. And again, Reputable Hunter, you're going to be able to play on turn 1 sometimes too. So because if they drop like a Clone Deserter that has a bounty, Reputable Hunter then comes out 1 turn early, or it costs 1 less to play. So that's also another good turn 1 play. You do have this, since it's blue wants to last a little bit longer, and you also have a deck with lots of restore. So you try to play as much restore in there. You try to play as much, as much Sentinels as you can, just make the game go a little longer.
Time, so you can get to your 6s. So you can get
to your 6s and really push the game at that point. So that's the point of those. As you can see, here's your ships. So you have a couple 2-drop ships there too. So you have some early game possibilities with the Rickety Quadrunk Jumper and the Mercenary Gunship. You also have.
Shit, could you imagine if you can get Concord down, turns into a 2/5 Sentinel?
And then you can do it again next turn and become a 3/6 Sentinel that also gets +2/0 when defending. So super strong with Ray. Super strong with Ray.
That's the card. That's a good card. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So you got all of these there. You got a few, as you can see here, we got a few events and just equipment.
You threw in some red. Yeah.
Whatever. Have equipment. The Heroic Sacrifice, sometimes you got to play off colors because you just need to build a deck. We're going to go over a few things in these that I think are really people don't value in Sealed and Draft that they should. It's okay to play off. Like Heroic Sacrifice, it plays for 3. But the heroic sacrifice has an awesome action. It says action 2, doesn't have any sort of stipulation to it. Defeat the equipment, but get +4/+0 and overwhelm to a unit for attack. And so that is still so good. Giving a unit +4 and overwhelm for just 2 is totally worth later having the ability to do that to pay 3. So that's great. Another thing I'm going to say is doubles. Don't be afraid to pay double for doubles. Like the doubles are usually so much stronger. Like double the same color for blue, even though you're not playing blue. Midnight Repairs will cost you 4 because it's a double blue because one of them out of aspect. It's totally fine on lots of doubles to pay extra.
That's a garbage move. Just throw that into the burn pile.
No. Keep this card. Heal up to 8 damage from any number of units for 4. Totally worth playing for 4.
If it goes that long, you're going to be done anyways.
I mean, with Ray, especially with all the Sentinels out there, just blocking them. Don't be afraid to do that. Also, don't be afraid to play removal at extra 2. Spare the Target is a great cost card in this draft for 5. Spare the Target says return an enemy unit, non-leader unit to their hand and collect that bounty. If they drop a 6-cost unit, you bounce it for 5, you're still getting a resource benefit from that because you're still having 1 extra resource to that. If they Voltron, which Voltron happens a lot where they just keep buffing up 1 unit, you're happily paying 5 to return that thing to their hand. So don't be afraid with removal to play extra. So like just because it doesn't fit your deck because you're not playing yellow, it has hero, so you're only paying 2 extra. Don't be afraid, especially with removal, to use something that's out of color. So as you can see, I use 2 out of color cards in this deck, and I would play both of those cards.
Yeah, I mean, that's if you draw these cards in it, and like at that point, that does get to a little bit more advanced on it. But
yeah, sure. I'm building a deck here, and you have some other things. You got that rival fall, which you talk about there.
Rival fall's nice. Hold on to that because you can defeat a unit when you need to for 6.
Yep, and you got.
I guess that's why. Like if it's 6, I'd rather defeat a unit than bounce it because you can just get rid of it altogether. But
yeah. So
that was the first deck. 30 cards.
That was 30 cards exactly that I built with that one. I think that's a fun deck for Ray. The second one I built was Cad Bane Red as the off color one here. So as you'll see here, lots of underworlds that you want to put in this deck because underworlds is what triggers Cad Bane's ability. Lots of smaller units. This is a much more aggressive deck. There's lots of 1s, lots of 2s out here. As you see, almost everything here is underworld or bounty hunter. This Bounty Guild Initiate is one of my favorite cards when we talk about tier lists because it's a 1-cost 1/2 that if you have another bounty hunter unit in play, it also deals 2 damage to a ground unit. So anytime you can do damage, especially with Cad Bane, which is also doing damage, you're able to start really pinging things and getting units off the board fast. Lady Proxima, another really good Cad Bane card if you're playing Cad Bane because it says anytime you play an underworld card, another one, you deal 1 damage to a base. And that's not limit once per turn. So with Cad Bane, you having all the underworld cards, you're pinging damage to units and you're pinging damage to the base at the same time. So Lady Proxima and Cad Bane pair exceptionally well. So you got all of those. So you can see all those underworlds. The chain code collector, I'm going to talk about later. My A tier list cards. I think that card is really, really, really strong in draft and sealed coming up here.
I'll be honest, if you draw a Zuckuss and Forlone, and you got a Cad, it's game over.
But you can see here, Zuckuss is underworld. Trandoshan's Hunters are underworld. A 6/4 for 5 that has a possibility of being a 7/5. You have a bounty hunter here. Everything except for the Nexu, which I think is just a strong unit, is underworld and bounty hunter. Really synergized well. Your ships here are almost all underworld. You get those turncoats. You get a bunch of ships. So if you're a space person, you can really punish them hard with space with this deck. You get the Disabling Fangfinder, which is a reprint, but it is so strong because defeating an upgrade is this deck's about upgrades. It's all about bounties and everything. You can take a bounty off of your own character so they don't get it. That is a super strong card. And Punishing One is a 3/4 that enables it to be readied. So you can attack twice in a turn if upgraded enemy unit is defeated. So these are all really low cost. So you can see here, this deck has a couple high cards, 5, 5, 5, 6. You might not burn past 5. You may never play this 6, and you may just keep it at 5 there.
Yeah, you might.
And again, you're playing just a couple upgrades, a couple removals. You don't have a ton of removals because Cad Bane kind of acts as your removal in those regards. And so that is exactly 30 cards on this one as well.
Man, that Boba Fett armor is a +2/2, only costs a 2.
Yeah.
Holy good night.
It's good, especially, yeah. And armed to the teeth, he gives 1 unit +2/+0, and when he attacks, he gives another unit +2/+0. So basically, it's a +4/+0 for 2. Really smart.
Armed to
Is it Hondo?
That's Hondo with his
Hondo.
game.
Yeah.
So
It's a Hondo card.
I don't know. I would probably, if I was had to pick between these two decks, I would probably pick the Cad Bane deck just because I think it synergizes so well and has some Zuckuss and some other stuff. It's a little bit more of an aggressive deck of the two. Ray is definitely more the control-y of the two. If you're a control player, Ray is great. I think the Cad Bane really synergizes better of the decks.
So
both of these decks, I think, are good decks. I think you win at least 50% of your games with both these decks if you play them right. Maybe you get lucky with this Cad one and you go 3-1. I don't think you have the legendaries and the rares to go 4-0, maybe, but I think you can go 3-1 with this deck.
Right.
Somebody's gonna pull the best legendaries, and that's just how sealed goes. So one of the neat things about pre-release is you get access to 2 leaders, which you never get access to ever again. You can never draft or play sealed with these 2 units because they're the starter units. But in the pre-release, you get special pre-release versions of these cards that you're able to play. So Mando and Moff Gideon, you can play. So because you can only play them in this one event, I recommend that you maybe give it a try, especially Mando. Mando, I'm convinced, is by far the best leader that you could play. I would not be surprised if 50% of the decks you see at pre-release are Mando, because Mando is broken good in sealed and draft. So Mando works this way. Whenever you play an upgrade, you can exhaust this leader. And if you do that, you can exhaust an enemy unit that has 4 or less hit points left in it.
All right, guys. Have a good night, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's done.
So, in essence, it's a semi-removal. Every turn, you're able to exhaust one of their units. In a format where removal is almost impossible, you have it almost every single turn with the Mando. And then when he's a unit out there, he's a 4/7, and he can also play an upgrade. As many times you want in a turn, you can play an upgrade when he's out there, and it will exhaust a unit with 6 or less remaining hit points. Can be a leader even. Doesn't, it can be any unit. That is really, really strong. So like I said, I think you'll see a lot of Mando in your pre-release events. I'm doing 2 pre-release events. I've already signed up for Friday night and Saturday pre-release this week. So this deck that I built here is built on trying to get as much experience and buffing of units and units that get benefits when they're buffed. So as you can see here, a 0/4 Moisture Farmer with Restore 2 just gives you more ability. The 1/2 Mando Trooper that gives experience. So like for example, when that Follower of the Way is upgraded, it gets +1/+1. So if you get experience, that thing becomes a 3/5 because it gets the bonus from it as well. You can see here the Protectors of the Throne, when they get upgraded, which experience is upgraded, they get Sentinels, so they get 3/5s. So you get quite a few here. Mando's all synergy. You get the Mandalorian Warrior, give an experience token to another Mando unit, another way of buffing things. You can also give experience tokens potentially with some Wookiee synergy here that I put in here. So there's quite a bit of synergy in this deck between really good Mandos and some decent Wookiees. But the nice thing is in this deck, there's not that much space. Marco drew really bad space on this whole 6 packs. And sometimes that happens in sealed. You don't get the air that you want, but you have really good ground units. So we're trying to build in as much as possible upgrades as you possibly can, because you can take advantage of the Mandalorian's ability when you play upgrades. And so you're playing some bounties here because bounties are upgrade. You play them on the other character. You also get to exhaust something and get a benefit from it. So bounties work super strong, especially in this draft with the Mando. Marco, we're going to do the tier list next. So why don't we?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll do that.
All right, pop it in. I'm just trying to fix the camera. So just.
Yep. And then you get some really, really strong events that, the surprise strike, you can pull 2 of those. That just gives you extra damage. You get the experience token from the cover strength. You get the spare the target, which gets to bounce things. You got some capture, some more removal. I really think this deck would be super high potential. I love this deck right here that he was able to pull together. The other deck I wanted to use the Moff Gideon. I don't think Moff Gideon is very good. But again, you can only use it once. So if you don't pull anything or you just want to play Moff Gideon because you can play Moff Gideon, do so in this event. You just have fun with pre-release events. Moff Gideon comes out on 5, which is kind of nice. It's a 3/6 with Overwhelm. And he can exhaust to give a unit that has 3 or less attack plus 1 attack if it is attacking units. Or when he's out, which on turn 5 is going to be out, he's able to give every friendly unit that costs 3 or less plus 1 plus 0 and Overwhelm, which is really, really strong. Be able to give everything a buff and Overwhelm. He has a good ability when he's out, but he only has 6 health. So can you make him go long? So you can see here, we have a lot of small units because the small units go well with Moff Gideon because you want units that cost 3 or less. And so we do quite a bit of that. Again, we try to do the Mandalorian synergy because you can use those house cast soldiers and buff them with the Mandalorian warriors. You get those great reputable hunters, which you can often play on +2. You have another Mandalorian with a Deathwatch loyalist, and just other strong 1 and 2 cost units there quite a bit. But because he pulled all these crazy cards, I'm like, why don't we just go for it? Why don't we just put in some cards we probably will never play? But late game, if we can get there, man, you get Maul, you get the Rancor, you get Gore, you get that. So we have big time bombs late game if we can play a few of them. If not, you just burn them and use them as your resources. No big deal. Move on. Getting the ships, we tried to get to that 2-3 because these all can get the buff from Gideon. And some of these strongs I think are really strong with the buff. This is a 3/5 that buffs their resources. I don't think this is a bad card to play in draft because I think it's hard to deal with the Outlaw Corona. I don't think you're going to see it die before turn 5 or 6 often because 5 health and space is hard to deal with. And they don't have a lot of removal. So I actually think the Corona is a really strong unit only in draft. So don't worry too much about this bounty of giving them an extra resource because by that point, they're probably going to have all the resources that they need. So I wouldn't be too worried about playing the Corona, even though it does have a pretty big bounty. That's in Constructed. I think it's not playable card. I got a couple things that buff your units with, Arm to the Teeth and the Blaster, and just a few just spells or whatever, your events. So you can see here, this deck is unit heavy because of Moff Gideon. And you should be able to flood the board with 2 units almost every single turn until you get to late game. And then maybe you can drop one of your bombs if you need to. I don't think this deck is as good as it. I think I'll be interested to hear as people go through and look at these later. If they think these decks, which one they think is better, feel free to put that in the chat, those viewers that are watching it later. But I do think that both of these decks are playable. I think Mando is much better. Just Mando's an amazing leader. It is by far, to me, the S tier leader that you can play at your pre-release. So
even better than Cad Bane?
Oh, yeah, by far. Not even close to me. Cad Bane is going to be what you see all the time outside of it, but Mando, I think, is S tier. Being able to exhaust a unit every single turn easily. Oh, it's so good. And in this format where removal is it's so hard to come by. So
Okay.
yeah, that's those decks that I put together. What I wanted to do here real quick before we move on to opening packs real quick is just give a little bit of a guide of cards that I think if you pull it, these are almost auto includes in any deck. And just give a little rationale on a few because you're going to be some that I don't think other people will agree are auto includes that I include. I think there's some busted cards that people might be overlooking that are going to be so good in sealed and draft going forward. These are the leaders that I think are the best. These are my top leaders. I would say one is S tier. That's Mando. Mando is by far the best leader. And then you have 3 A tier leaders. You have Cad Bane, which we've talked about before, Rey, and Kylo. Kylo is going to be so good in sealed. The effect that he comes out on turn 4.
Yeah.
Turn 4 is a 5/4. He loses -1/-0 for every card in your hand, but you're probably not going to have cards in your hand. And one of the things about sealed is it's easy not to have cards in your hand because you just don't save them. And he gives this ability to discard a card and give a unit +2/+0. So you're able to buff your units and keep your hands small.
So if you have one card left in your hand, you're going to get rid of it, and then you're going to give somebody who's playing 2/2, and you're going to turn him over, and he's going to stay at a 5/4.
And on turn 4, he's just going to be crushing in aggro. To me, Kylo is the aggro leader. You didn't pull any Kylo. I would have loved to play with Kylo. He's a rare, so you probably won't see him as much as you will Rey, who's a common for that much. But if you get Kylo and if you like playing aggro, it's going to be really, really, really strong. And red has a lot of good, as Marco said, the red black the villain has a lot of good cards that are cheap, which really works well with Kylo. I think you never want to go more than 5 resources as well with that one. So now by colors, I picked 5 cards in every color that I think are there strong cards that you want to play no matter what. The Reputable Hunter I've talked about before. It is, I think, going to be a turn 1 play, even though it costs 3 more often than not, because it says if a unit has a bounty, which a lot of the units that cost 1 and 2 have a bounty on it. This unit costs 1 less to play. So playing a 3/4 on turn 1 is devastatingly hard to deal with. Scanning Officer, which I said there, when it's played, you reveal 3 enemy resources. You defeat any of the resources with the smuggle, and then any resources defeated this way, they put into deck as a new resources. If you play this as your first card on turn 2, they have 3 resources. If 2 of those have smuggle, as long as you're going first, you get rid of 2 resources, and then 2 resources that they come into play come in exhausted. So on their next play, on turn 2, they only have 1 resource to use instead of 3. So you really get to alter the tempo. You get a unit. They might not be able to play any units because of the Scanning Officer. And given the fact that in sealed, all you have is the cards you're given, a lot of cards have smuggle. It will hit more often than not. And you're almost at a disadvantage to play your smuggled cards as resources because of this one card. If you see them playing green, it alters how you play. Timely Intervention is a good card that gives anything ambush and can be played for smuggle, so you can save it for later. When you need a card to have ambush, you can give it. The Heavy Fighter is a understated 3/3, but it has a nice ability where you can exhaust another one of your units, and he gives it +3/+0 for an attack. So basically, it can be a 6/3 with Overwhelm for 4.
6/4.
Yeah, okay. And then the Freetown backup is a 1/1 that buffs a unit whenever it attacks. So that's decently statted. That gives another unit +2/+2. I love those cards. So those are the green cards. Green by far is the weakest. Those are the hardest for me to find 5. Some of them I had like 8, 9. Like red and blue have like 8 or 9 awesome cards, but I couldn't pick them all. So these are the ones that I picked for red. The Loyalists we've already talked about. Trandoshan Hunters is a 5/6/4 with Overwhelm that if a unit has a bounty, enemy unit, this one's the experience. So basically it's a 7/5 probably half the time. I want to come back to Pillage last. The Blaster, I love this because it's a +2/+0 for 1, but you can also play it for yellow. And if it's yellow, if you play it for smuggle, it also gets to it. The unit gets to attack immediately. So you get some action shenanigans going there. IG-88 is a 5-cost 6/5. That every time he attacks, he gets to deal 3 damage to a damaged ground unit. That's really strong. And Pillage. Pillage is going to be a card I think that people are sleeping and overlooking on, especially in draft. Choose a player, they discard 2 cards from the hand. Often in sealed, all you have is 2 cards in your hand. Because you're burning a resource, maybe you have one, you save one, or maybe you don't burn anything. You play Pillage late game, their whole hand is gone. They can't do anything to the board to improve it. You're keeping a card. And so you're erasing their turn completely. And so if you're going first, if you can have a deck that can go first often, this is the first card you play, wipe out their hand, and they can't do anything. Because in sealed, you just don't have much draw.
Yep.
So Pillage and sealed and draft will wipe out a turn often.
Mm-hmm.
For 4, that's great. If you have 6 resources, you can still play a little derp 2-drop, and then you get to build board while they can't do anything. And you probably are able to dictate the tempo from there on out. Blue had way too many units that are really strong for me to go through. The client, 2/5 with shielding. That
isn't Embo rare?
Embo is uncommon.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
I didn't pick any rares because rares.
Oh, I thought you were gonna pick commons. Okay,
Commons and uncommon because that's what you get, right?
Yeah,
you get all commons and uncommons. So I didn't pick any rares. The client 2/5 with shielding, and also can heal 5 damage from your base with the bounty.
Yeah,
2/5 with shielding for 3 is really good by itself. Then you also have on top of it an awesome ability. Embo 3/4 when it attacks and defeats a defender, you get to heal 2 damage from him. A unit can deal it from itself. It's another one that's tough to deal with. Rose Tika is a 2/6 with shielding, but basically can be a 4/8 if you get rid of that shield, if the shield's not gone. Covert, we talked about before, heals 2 damage. It gives an experience for 1. And Midnight Repairs, like I said, even though this is a double blue with 2, healing 8 damage from your unit is really strong and something where it doesn't have a lot of removal.
Dude, you could get rid of the shield token at Rose Tika, and that gives a 2/2 experience.
Yeah.
So it busts it up.
4/8.
Yeah.
That's
well, I mean to anybody, but yeah
anybody.
Yourself.
Yep.
All right.
Those ones. And yellow. Chain Code Collector. I think this is another card that people are going to sleep on and not think is good because you see a 4/4/2 has ambush, but it says on attack if the defender has bounty, which there's going to be a lot of cards that have bounties, it gets -4, -0. So basically, you're able to, I think, often take out a unit that has a bounty on it, and it's still going to stick around as a 4/2. And so it's already done its damage, and then
because it's not going to attack you back. That's right. Yeah.
And then you have Frozen in Carbonite. It's removal attached to a non-leader unit. It can't ready, and when it plays, it's exhausted. So it just freezes it for the rest of the game unless they have something to do with it. Spare the target, we know. Good one there. Hunter of the Hexian Brood is another one of these bounties, which you're going to see a lot. It's a 3-cost 4/3. If an enemy has a bounty, it gets a shield. That's an overstated unit that can get a shield. And then Principal Outlaw 4/4/4. But when it attacks, it can also exhaust a unit. So it's removal on that one. And then we have 3 other cards that aren't that picked through here. The Toro 3/3/5. But whenever you play a bounty hunter, you can deal damage to it and then ready it. So basically, he's able to attack twice a turn. Really strong there. The Gunship, a 2/3/2, has this weird ability where your opponent can play 4 and then gain that control of the unit, and then you can do it back. Anybody can do that. If they're paying 4 to take that unit from you, that's their turn. And so you're able to drop a bigger unit, and all they're getting is that. So don't be afraid of this card because you see this weird thing of where your opponent can take that unit from you. It's a 3/2. If they're paying 4 for that, they're losing out a lot more. And then the Bounty Guild Initiate we talked about earlier too, a 1/1/2 that can deal 2 damage to a ground unit if you control another bounty hunter. Strong when you don't have much removal to be able to ping 2, take out an early minion, or finish off something that you need to finish off for 1. Those to me are the cards that are most playable. If you get those in sealed, find a way to bring them into your deck.